Either a chivalrous hero or a dastardly villain, depending on which version of history you believe, Edward of Woodstock has always been a controversial figure. Nicknamed the Black Prince, he lies inside an ornate tomb in Canterbury Cathedral, a fittingly elaborate memorial for a man once set to be king. But now, a new investigation has changed his legacy for good. Centuries after the Black Prince was buried, experts studying his tomb noticed a wild detail. As a young man, the first son of King Edward III was famed for his prowess on the battlefield, becoming a key player in the 100 Years' War. And according to legend, he slaughtered thousands during the sack of Limoges, showing no mercy as he carved a bloody path through the French city. In short, then, Edward certainly earned his reputation as the Black Prince. And when he died, he left behind a series of instructions for his burial, detailing the life-sized effigy which still graces his tomb. For more than 600 years, this monument has stood undisturbed in Canterbury Cathedral, testament to a man still loved and feared even centuries after his death. Fast forward to the 21st century, though, and a group of researchers have been studying the Black Prince's medieval tomb. And thanks to the latest technology, they have delved deeper than anyone else before. Now, they are shedding a new light on the life and death of one of history's most controversial figures. This latest chapter in Edward's long and complicated legacy culminated in October 2021, when a team from the Courtauld Institute in London, England, announced the findings of a recent study. Under the arches of Canterbury Cathedral, they had analyzed the materials comprising the effigy mounted on the Black Prince's tomb and uncovered some surprising results. According to a statement released on October 27, the study was led by medieval art lecturer Jessica Barker, University College London conservator Graham MacArthur, and PhD student Emily Peags. Together, they set out to learn more about Edward's tomb and to try to solve some of the mysteries surrounding this controversial prince. Born in Woodstock, Oxfordshire, in 1330, Edward was the eldest of 12 children born to King Edward III and his wife, Philippa of Hainault. As heir to the English throne, he was given great responsibility from a young age. And, initially at least, he seemed more than capable of rising to the challenge. As early as 1338, Edward was left in charge of the kingdom, while his father was overseas, although this role was largely symbolic in nature. But as he grew older, he started to take more active roles in England's military campaigns. And while still a teenager, he was knighted in the French city of Saint-Vaast-la-Hougue. At the time, England and France were locked in a conflict known as the 100 Years' War. With both sides staking their claim to the French throne, the conflict eventually spiraled into a dispute which affected much of Western Europe. And by the time that it ended more than a century later, millions of people had lost their lives. Early on in the 100 Years' War, Edward, still only 16 years old, led his men to victory at the Battle of Crécy. And later, he laid siege to a series of cities across southwest France. When surrounded by the enemy in 1356, he refused to give himself up to King John II, launching the Battle of Poitiers instead. Although vastly outnumbered by the French forces, Edward and his men managed to fight them off and secure victory, even taking the French king hostage in the process. Eventually, the ruler was returned to his people, and the Black Prince was given a large swathe of land to govern over. Although the tide of the 100 Years' War eventually turned, and Edward's land was returned to France, his early victories made him something of a celebrity in medieval England. And on several occasions, he returned to the continent to settle the disputes that raged on the other side of the English Channel. A skilled military commander in line to inherit the English throne, Edward must have cut a formidable figure both on and off of the battlefield. But over the years, his reputation has morphed into something even more fearsome, that of the bloody and brutal Black Prince. So where did this nickname come from? According to some, Edward earned this bleak moniker on account of his black soul. And there are certainly several accounts that suggest he was a particularly violent and merciless man. Take, for example, reports from Limoges in 1370, where the prince was ruling at his father's behest until a confidant betrayed his trust. Incensed by the treachery, it's said, Edward ordered his army to sack the city, rounding up men, women, and children and slaughtering them without discrimination. According to some estimates, more than 3,000 people died in the resulting carnage. And since that day, the Black Prince has been known as a butcher throughout France. Today, though, there are some scholars who doubt this version of events, suggesting a more palatable death toll of just a few hundred people, hardly unusual for the time. And while Edward did appear to be racked with guilt towards the end of his life, there is no evidence to suggest that a brutal massacre was the source of his discontent. Instead, some have argued that the nickname is merely a reference to Edward's coat of arms, which featured 3 white feathers against a black backdrop. After all, given the prince's respected reputation amongst his contemporaries, it's difficult to imagine him as just a deranged butcher, even from the French point of view. Whatever the truth, the Black Prince certainly made an impact on history, both on and off of the battlefield. And his death in June 1376 was no less dramatic. After contracting dysentery, he apparently turned to God in his final days, leaving behind some very specific instructions concerning how he should be buried. According to the Courtauld Institute's statement, Edward specified that his effigy should be located in a prominent position, instructing all who passed it to pray for his soul. And if that wasn't enough, he also left behind a gruesome epitaph, with orders to have the words inscribed on his future tomb. The epitaph reads, "On earth I had great riches, land, houses, great treasure, horses, money and gold. But now a wretched captive am I deep in the ground, lo herein lie. My beauty great is all quite gone, my flesh is wasted to the bone." Edward, then, did not want anyone to forget the grim realities of death, even centuries after his passing. But those weren't the only instructions that Edward left behind. Apparently, he also left orders to create a lifelike effigy to adorn his tomb, depicted fully armed and ready for war. And if you have ever been to Canterbury Cathedral, you will know that the Black Prince's final wish was duly fulfilled. Located some 60 miles southeast of London in the Kent city, which forms the backdrop for Chaucer's famous The Canterbury Tales, the cathedral is one of the oldest religious buildings in Britain. And over the years, many famous names have been laid to rest within its walls, from murdered Archbishop Thomas Becket to King Henry IV. At the time of Edward's death, though, most English royals were buried in London, in the crypts of Westminster Abbey. And to some, his choice of resting place implies that he was seeking penance for his earthly sins. Certainly, his intricate tomb and macabre epitaph suggest a man who was not altogether comfortable with death. Towards the middle of the cathedral, not far from a shrine dedicated to Becket, the tomb demanded by the dying Edward still stands today. Bearing an incredibly detailed effigy of the Black Prince decked out in all his armor, it continues to fascinate visitors even today. And for Dr. Barker, MacArthur, Peggs, and their team, it was a mystery crying out to be explored. According to the statement, Edward's effigy in Canterbury Cathedral is a rare artifact, one of only half a dozen similar sculptures left over from medieval times. But although the cast metal figure was requested by the Black Prince himself, several questions remain surrounding its origins. In a 2017 video, Dr. Barker explains the inspiration behind the latest study. Who actually followed through with the Black Prince's wishes? Dr. Barker asks in an interview posted on Canterbury Cathedral's YouTube channel. And who made his tomb? Those are the 2 questions I'd really like to be answered. Equipped with the latest technology, the team set out to uncover the tomb's secrets once and for all. In the video, Barker discusses the techniques used to study Edward's tomb. She says, "What we're doing is a combination of art historical analysis, so that means really close looking, with lots of mirrors and a little bit of prodding, and scientific analysis, so that's the XRF analysis we're doing." Portable X-ray fluorescence, XRF, machines are used to analyze the elemental composition of a substance without the need for any invasive procedures. For a team keen to investigate a 600-year-old effigy, then XRF was a vital tool. But that wasn't the only weapon in their arsenal when it came to studying the medieval sculpture. According to the statement, the team also used a type of camera known as a videoprobe to see inside the effigy. By threading the tool through tiny, pre-existing openings in the sculpture, they were afforded a unique glimpse into how the whole thing had been put together. And it wasn't quite what they had expected to find. Until now, a lack of documents about the Black Prince's tomb and effigy has limited our understanding of their construction, chronology and patronage, explained Dr. Barker in the statement. She described the investigation as a long overdue opportunity to reassess the effigy. By using the latest scientific technology and closely examining the effigy, we have discovered so much more about how it was cast, assembled and finished, continued Dr. Barker. Previously, historians had assumed that the tomb had been constructed soon after Edward's death. But the team's analysis soon shed doubt on that long-held theory. Edward's effigy, it turned out, was made from the same alloys that were used to construct a similar memorial to his father in 1386. As a result, experts believe that it wasn't cast and installed until a decade after the Black Prince's death. But who was responsible for executing his wishes after a gap of 10 years? According to Dr. Barker and her team, the answer is Edward's son, who took the throne in his father's stead and went on to become Richard II. Around the time that the effigies were built, you see, war with France was once again on the horizon. And amidst the accompanying financial crisis, the king's popularity had plummeted. It is very likely that Richard II was seeking to promote the enduring and immutable quality of the crown through the making of precious metal effigies of his father and grandfather, similar to those he would later order for himself and his wife, Queen Anne of Bohemia, Dr. Barker explained in the statement. But that's not all. Interestingly, the team also discovered that a real armorer was most likely involved in the creation of the effigy, which would explain the stunning level of detail. As well as guaranteeing the accuracy of the cast metal sculpture, he would also have ensured that the different pieces were assembled in a seamless fashion. And it's not like the creators of the effigy had much room for creative license either. Since its construction in the 14th century, the tomb has sat in the shadow of Edward's real-life armor, displayed for centuries in Canterbury Cathedral. As per the website MyRMauri.com, according to legend, his sword was once kept there too, before it was stolen by Oliver Cromwell during the English Civil War. There is something deeply affecting about the way Edward's armor is depicted on the tomb, Dr. Barker continued. This isn't just any armor, it is his armor, the same armor that hangs empty above the tomb, replicated with complete fidelity even down to tiny details like the position of the rivets. But while the mystery of who carried out Edward's wishes may have been solved, one question remains: who actually built the incredible tomb? According to Pegs, we may never know. But thanks to this latest analysis, we have been offered a unique insight into their timeless talent and the sculpture that they left behind. Although the names of the artists are lost to history, by looking very closely at how the sculpture was made, we have reconstructed the artistic processes, background and training of the artists, and even the order in which the sculpture's many pieces were assembled, Pegs explained. This is a completely unique and innovative figure and shows, contrary to widespread popular belief, how extremely technologically sophisticated the medieval period was. Moving forward, Pegs hopes that the same methods used to analyze Edward's tomb might lead to more revelations to come. She said, portable technologies and interdisciplinary technical studies like this allow scientists and art historians to collaboratively find answers to questions which we couldn't necessarily answer alone. We see different things. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.